Hello, everybody. Thanks for checking us out here on the web at A Chef's Kitchen in downtown historic Williamsburg, Virginia. I'm John Gonzales, the chef and owner. We give cooking classes here and in the form of a dinner, and we cook the beef tenderloins in front of you and serve it, but our customers don't get to see this part of it, so I thought it'd be really nice to share how to clean a beef tenderloin. This is the certified Hereford brand that we usually feature here out of Kansas City. I always find them to be quite fresh and a little less prevalent in the marketplace, and I think a little tighter control in their program. But they come in this typical, plastic wrap, cryovac shrink wrap thing. And one of the things you want to look for is really clean white fat, right? Not too much what we refer to in the business as purge. And that's a whole lot of juice that would be the purge in the bottom of the bag and indicates how long it's been in the bag. And then check for the smell of it. If it smells really fresh like ground beef and doesn't have a almost fermented corn smell to it from being marinated in its own purge, it's a good fresh one. And indeed this one is. Now we're going to clean this. I'll show a little bit of it, but you can do quite a bit of it manually. This is the fat cover, and underneath the fat cover is what we call some silver skin. I guess a medical doctor would call it connective tissue or fascia. And you can see I can peel it back from this little wing muscle here toward what we call the runner or the side muscle. And as we peel this back, you can see we're approaching where there's a little crease, and we can pull all that off of there. And a little bit of fat is okay, but the silver skin here has to go. So as we pull this back manually, you can see this side muscle and silver skin there. What a lot of restaurants will do, or butchers, I don't want to tear it, so every time I feel like I want to pull it and it tears, I can help it along with my knife a little bit. A lot of times what will happen in restaurants and butcher shops is they'll try to keep some of this side muscle on. And if you want to do it that way, go up with your knife, keeping the knife at this maybe 30-degree angle toward the ceiling. The knife doesn't like to go through the silver skin, and we pull this off. We're going to have set up kind of 3 different piles: usable trim and slightly usable trim and waste. So here we are again at that crevice, and if you want to try to keep some of this side muscle on, again, start here, keep your knife up, angled slightly, and keep on this side of it. And then again, you can tear it off, but help it along a little bit with the knife there and pull. So this is still a little tough in here, but a lot of times you'll see filet mignons cut on the cross with a little bit of that little side muscle still attached to it. And sometimes it can be quite delicious. But what we do at A Chef's Kitchen is remove every bit of this side muscle. You can sometimes buy tenderloins called a pismo, and that stands for peeled inside muscle removed. But again, see, the angle of my knife is always away from the eye of the meat. And we're getting down there. Over here, it's really flat. That won't cook up well. I like to trim that flat piece away, and that will become some of our usable trim. There's this little part here, way back in the day I was taught, this was called a rat tail. And after you get it started, you can kind of pull a lot of this out, and you see how it kind of comes, and that would all be not very delicious to incorporate in your steak, but it all kind of pulls out. So you can see we can do quite a bit of this with our hands. Fat, 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 fat. This is the white stuff is fat and indicates a good marbled product, but it's going to sort of cook away and give us some nice searing action when this fat drips onto the grill, so there's no real harm in leaving the fat. Fat is juiciness, fat is flavor, but we'll often take away the big pieces or knuckles of it. And there's usually a little bit trapped in here, and if you've got a steak and you find that on the inside of your steak, it might not be all that appealing. So let's turn this guy over now and take a look at it in its semi-clean state. If we cut this into filet mignons and steaks, this silver skin is inedible and just twists and turns and buckles the steak. In a tenderloin, it would do the same thing, and you don't want to try to cut this. So the part that we really need to emphasize is removing the silver skin. I like starting about in the middle here, right? And keeping this taut, keep my knife angled up away from the meat and go all the way through and up. Now, I have to keep it taut this way. If I don't, what will happen? So we have to keep this taut, the part we removed, which is why we start in the middle. I mean, you could start at one end, I guess. That's going to be inedible. Now let's go in here to this part and dig this out. Some of it comes and some of it doesn't. And there we go. There's some fat that'll melt away if we want. Keep going in and finding this silver skin. Now we're into this part of the meat which really comes to a fold where these two are connected. It's a good example of connective tissue, or and how its role by connecting two different muscles. And you can see the silver skin as I expose it. Again, I'm keeping the knife away from the meat, but in tight to the silver skin. This is not a razor sharp knife. I've got some sharper knives that would be a little bit too sharp for this project, to tell you the truth. And now we've exposed it down there, and we're going to kind of remove that silver skin in this V, cutting a V out of it and lifting. And here you can't see too much from this side, but I'm doing the same thing on the back side, just sort of flopping this back and forth because I don't want to go any deeper than I have to. And follow that down. And you can kind of pull this up as your V cut works for you and remove it. Clean it up a little bit, and then we can continue getting rid of this silver skin and some of this silver skin under this one piece of fat. So now you see we've got all this cleaned out. A little bit of fat here, not the end of the world. But on the back side, well, let me finish this here. We've got a little bit of that side muscle still connected, and I want to get rid of this silver skin. So we start again, I do, in the middle, different ways. And we reach this. Now this is mostly fat in here, but who wants to bite down on a big glob of that, especially when you're, you know, paying all that money for a filet mignon. So again, we're doing the V cut on this side muscle, which is delicious. We don't need to get rid of it, we just need to clean out away from it. Let's take it over and, oh look, yeah, more silver skin, quite a bit. A little piece running up here, don't like it, can't chew it. And all of this silver skin here, again, see my knife going into somewhere in the middle of it, because we have to keep it taut. And then back again, taut, knife angled up. More exposed. And back again. It's not going through the meat, it's touching silver skin. And back again. Might as well clean up some of this raggedy looking stuff here. Now, this little band is kind of optional. It's getting real nitty gritty when you go into this, but I don't like any of it. We take it all away here. And there we go. So I think, other than that little tiny line there, piece of, in there, fat's not bad, and there we go. I like getting a box cut here, so now we're getting into the, yeah, oh boy, that was really tender, and I didn't hit any of the silver skins. Now, if we're gonna cut this into filet mignons, up here at what's called the head, or in French cooking, the Chateaubriand end of the tenderloin, you can see we would be cutting steaks through, and we'd have this little clover leaf-like looking thing, and sometimes they're called a W steak in butchery because they look like that clover leaf W. Then you get into the middle section here, the best part, which would be a barrel cut, a perfect cylinder, and then you have to get creative down here and perhaps just use these as a byproduct or your tenderloin tips where you lose the shape. We typically roast the beef tenderloin whole and then slice it, so it works out quite well. And let me show you again, see how flat and flabby that is. That's not going to cook up well. So we're kind of making it more tubular there.